Me too.
When we learn things, it isn't for memorizing a piece of information. Just reciting science facts or principles is not what we want children to be able to do. We want them to be able to go out in the world and make sense of novel phenomena. So making sense of things really is engaging in a performance and saying, I need to construct an explanation of why or how this occurs. Okay, let's get started.
Are you ready?
56.
Throughout the 2 days, I want you to engage as the scientist, you as the student, you as the learner.
If it was room temperature water, would it be behaving in the same way?
What's the science behind this? What's happening? As teachers start focusing on the next generation science standards, they will be able to help students see science as it really is, that it's not just a set of steps and procedures.
The real hope is that they can make a connection between what we do in the modeling of performances of science and what they do in their classroom.
Oh, wow.
In this day and age, one of the factors influencing the next generation science standards is the globalization, understanding we're in a global community. We're not kind of an isolated entity here.
The next generation science standards takes the vision from the framework for K-12 science education and puts it into a set of performance expectations. And it calls for the students to actively engage in science. It sets out parameters for science education, clear goals, along with describing the 3 dimensions that students can engage in to make sense of science. 3 dimensions are the cross-cutting concepts, the science and engineering practices, and the disciplinary core ideas.
Most of those ideas are not new. The integration of them, pulling those 3 dimensions together, is new.
If we're going to have the kids doing that, instruction has to reflect that.
What I'm walking away from today, kind of a big shift for me, is we can focus in on something very specific to help teach a much broader, bigger idea, that it actually helps the students be able to do that application to new scenarios, new situations.
Cross-cutting concepts. There's 7 of them. The way we've organized them is around causality, structure and function, systems, scale and proportion, change and stability, matter and energy, and then the last thing, patterns. These cross-cutting concepts are tools that you provide to the children, and they use those tools to make sense of phenomena.
So we're looking for changes in the system.
There's condensation on the outside.
The cross-cutting concepts are a way of organizing the phenomena in terms of what the system is that's being studied. What did you define as your system?
We included in our system also the surrounding air.
The idea that there's a cause-effect relationship.
What's causing the cloudiness?
It's causing the bubbles to come off of the ice.
It's going to get pushed in the direction of the wind, right?
And finally, patterns used as evidence to support their explanations.
So to me, the pattern is just the fluttering back and forth, right? Do you have a question in mind?
Why that pattern, that
The back and forth
pattern?
What if we change the direction of the flag, if we turn it this way?
Okay. I want to go inside and just make a little paper flag that we can blow on and manipulate.
The practices are a set of things that children do in engaging in science performances. Asking questions right here, that's what students do. As a professional teacher, you have to create an environment in which students are asking questions that help them make sense of things.
Ready?
150.
Why doesn't that ball return to that exact same level that you dropped it? Engaging students in the practices really does pique their curiosity, and it helps them have a desire to go out and have more questions about the world, which asking questions is a practice. So it's something we want them to be able to do, to be able to discover more about the world. What else contributes to it not reaching its maximum height that it started at?
The pull of gravity. Gravity is still pulling it back down even though it's bouncing up.
As learners, using evidence and using that evidence to construct explanations is important. I think having those experiences will really help students own the content.
More bounce, more energy in the bounce, and that's really the kinetic energy.
The last dimension of the core ideas, and there's nothing new here. We don't want kids at the end of instruction to recite the core ideas. We want them to use them in science performances, to make sense of novel phenomena, applying them to construct explanations and develop arguments.
So the alcohol is less dense than the ice. You can see the density in there is different.
Oh, yeah.
The core ideas in particular become valuable because we revisit them through every grade band, and they're moving forward in a very logical way. Those things we're asking them to do can be applied to more than just alcohol and water. It can be applied to cloud formation. It can be applied to condensation.
Why? What's happening? I think what's exciting about the next generation science standards is this intersection of the three dimensions, and that we're not just working on practices one day. You really are infusing the three dimensions within the classroom.
One of the things that you've done is asking what if. By doing that, I have to be able to take what I know, what I've learned, looking at the models, looking at patterns, and applying them somehow to show that I understand what would happen if I changed a dynamic.
It's been real helpful to remember that, I can't do one without thinking about the other.
No change. We should add that, right?
That's how students are going to be thinking about them as well.
It's cute.
It's my hope that this will be the reform in science education that not only gets students more proficient in science, but builds interest in science.